Okay, so back in late February 2026, war explodes in the Middle East, and naturally all eyes turn to the UN for answers. But what they got was, well, pretty much nothing, just deadlock. It really makes you wonder, what can the UN actually do when its most powerful members are on opposite sides of a fight? That's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
I mean, this is the big question, right? You see the headlines, you hear all these desperate calls for peace, but nothing seems to happen. It's just stalled. So today, we're going to dig into why. Why does the one organization designed to stop this stuff seem so completely powerless?
All right, first things first, let's set the stage. How did we even get here? And what was the UN's immediate reaction when things started to blow up?
So it all kicked off on February 28th. You have these coordinated strikes from the US and Israel hitting Iran. And Iran's response was immediate. They hit back at US bases and allies right there in the region. And just like that, within a matter of days, the whole situation spiraled into a full-blown war. And the human cost, as you can see, has just been devastating.
Right away, the UN's top guy, Secretary General Guterres, he comes out and condemns the violence. His message was super clear. Stop the fighting, now. But you know, a plea is one thing. Actually enforcing it is something else entirely. And that's where all the problems really started.
Okay, so the job of keeping the peace, that falls to the UN's most powerful group, the Security Council. The problem? Well, in this crisis, it's been totally, completely paralyzed. I mean, they've held these emergency meetings, right? But instead getting any real action, the meetings just turned into a blame game. Just a lot of finger-pointing and political grandstanding. And the result? Zip. Nada. No resolutions that actually do anything, no collective action, just a total stalemate while the war keeps raging on.
So what's the reason for this paralysis? It all comes down to one thing, the veto power. Basically, any one of the 5 permanent members, we call them the P5, can just raise their hand and block any resolution they don't like, single-handedly. It's a feature that was designed way back after World War II, really to keep the big powers at the table. But in a crisis like this one, it just grinds everything to a halt.
And believe me, the divide here is absolute. You've got the US, UK, and France on one side, saying the strikes were legitimate self-defense, and then on the other side, you have Russia and China calling them flat-out illegal aggression. So with the big players dug in on opposite sides, a veto is a sure thing. There's just no way a resolution can get through. And look, this isn't just some political squabble. This is a fundamental clash over how you even read international law itself.
What you have here are 2 really important articles from the UN Charter basically being thrown into a cage match against each other. The Western powers, they're pointing to Article 51. That's the one about the inherent right to self-defense. But then Russia, China, and a whole lot of UN human rights experts are pointing to Article 2.4, which pretty clearly prohibits using force against another country. They're arguing that these strikes were a textbook violation, a crime of aggression. No gray area. So when the very group that's supposed to enforce the rules is stuck arguing about what the rules even mean, yeah, you get to a pretty blunt conclusion. But wait a second, is that it? Is that the end of the story? What happens if the Security Council isn't the only tool the UN has? Is there some kind of plan B for when the veto power just stops everything cold?
Well, it turns out, yes, there is. It's a procedure that doesn't get used very often, called the Uniting for Peace resolution. And what it does is it basically shifts the whole game from the 15-member Security Council to the entire 193-member General Assembly.
Okay, so here's the playbook. Here's how it works. Step 1, the Security Council is hopelessly deadlocked. Check. So then, step 2, the General Assembly can call its own emergency session to vote on a resolution. But, and you knew there was a but, right? This is the big catch. That vote is not legally binding. Don't get me wrong, it carries a ton of moral and political weight. It's like taking the temperature of the entire planet. But at the end of the day, it can't force anyone to do anything.
So given that major limitation, what are the real-world consequences of this whole diplomatic failure? And where does the UN even go from here?
Well, with the Security Council stuck in neutral, the UN's role kind of pivots. It becomes more about damage control, trying to get humanitarian aid in, protecting civilians, and issuing these dire warnings from the IAEA about the catastrophic risk if a nuclear site gets hit. But on a much deeper level, what's really happening here is that the entire rules-based order, that whole web of treaties and agreements that's supposed to keep countries in line, is being seriously challenged.
And honestly, nothing captures this impossible divide better than the words of the ambassadors themselves. Iran's ambassador calls the attacks war crimes.
Israel's ambassador defends them as a necessity. I mean, where's the middle ground there? There isn't one, and the UN is just stuck right in the middle of that chasm.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The whole point of the United Nations was to prevent this exact kind of thing from happening. But when its most powerful members are the ones in the conflict, it just forces us to ask this really big, uncomfortable question. In a world full of superpowers, what is the rule of law really worth?